join me in welcoming Administrator Mills.
Well, thank you very much, Tom, for that great introduction. And I really want to thank the Kauffman Foundation for inviting me to be here today, and to congratulate Tom for taking the helm of this absolutely extraordinary institution. You know, this event today, looking at it, you can see why leaders in government and throughout business turn to Kauffman as the place for expertise, best practices, wise counsel on research as relating to entrepreneurs. And I also want to thank Senator Moran for all of his support for entrepreneurs and for the SBA in his Senate role. So entrepreneurship, as Tom mentioned, is what drives growth in our economy. And we know that it creates jobs. You've got some of the data. We know that it fuels innovation, and we know that it makes us more globally competitive. In fact, it's America's secret sauce. And what I want to focus on today is how we expand the entrepreneurial playing field, how we make it more inclusive, so that we can capitalize on all of the entrepreneurs who are all across America and bring to fruition what they have to offer. I travel every week. I think I'm up to 40 states, and I meet terrific entrepreneurs everywhere I go. So in Nashville, in Ames, Iowa, in Manchester, New Hampshire, many of these entrepreneurs are doing everything right. But because of their geography or because of market gaps, their businesses aren't getting the counseling, the expert networks, or the capital that they need to scale their operations and take them to the next level. In fact, as many of you know, and it may say in that report, today nearly 70% of venture capital goes to just 3 states, and you can all name them: California, Massachusetts, New York. But across the United States, and our goal at the SBA is to make sure that there is access and opportunity in all the rest of the regions, and so that we can get the transformative benefits of entrepreneurship into more communities and more industries. When I came first to the SBA 4 years ago, small businesses and entrepreneurs were getting crushed. They were in the middle of the worst economic recession in decades, and the banking market, which is one of the primary sources of financing for small business, had frozen. So to help them, we stepped in at the SBA. And in the Recovery Act, we raised our guarantees to 90%, and we reduced and eliminated our fees. And it worked. We were able to absolutely reverse the down, get the hockey stick going up, and we brought more than 1,000 community banks back to SBA lending. And one of the other things we did that's very important is we simplified and streamlined the processes. We took over 100 pages of paperwork out of some of our loan products. This is something that the President has been hammering on, and we want to simplify and streamline things for small businesses. And this worked also. We just finished 2 record years at the SBA of $30 billion each into the hands of small businesses. But there are still gaps. And we are continuing to particularly work on small dollar loans. So today, when I talk to business owners, we're having a very different conversation, though, than we were 4 years ago. We're talking about expansion. We're talking about the most effective ways to scale their operations and to reach new markets. How do we build on this momentum? How do we make America's entrepreneurs the cornerstone of our economic growth plans? So for starters, we know that all small businesses are not the same. And at the SBA, we worry about all 28 million of the small businesses, but only 6 million of them actually have employees. And the Main Street small businesses that are part of the fabric of our community, they're very important to the SBA. And as I just described, many of the SBA's loan and counseling operations are focused on ensuring their success. But the real drivers of growth, particularly in job creation, are a much smaller set of high-growth startups that punch above their weight. And economic research shows that employment at these startups account for just 3% of the workforce, but the hiring by these firms represents 20% of net new job creation. In Washington today, as you are well aware, much of the discussion around job creation and American competitiveness is being dominated by important conversations about large macro issues. So this is tax policy, the deficit, the federal budget. And addressing these issues is critical. But what I want to talk about today and what is missing from some of these conversations is a focus on the microeconomic issues. By that, we mean how do we create the ecosystems where small businesses and entrepreneurs can create that next new job and bring that next new innovation to market. A successful entrepreneurial ecosystem brings together university research, skills training, and providers of capital so that they're accessible to communities all across the country. Let me briefly talk about 3 strategies that we are pursuing at the federal level to drive these ecosystems. And the first strategy, I know many of you in this room are also active in, they are a series of place-based strategies, particularly clusters and accelerators. For every region of the country, there is a set of economic assets. So there's the healthcare community in Nashville, the cybersecurity community in San Diego, food processing in upstate New York, and I asked for one in Kansas City, I got back animal health and nutrition, right? When small businesses cluster, they can draw on regional assets like universities or local industries. It drives job creation, new business formation, innovation, and new products. In a speech about clusters, President Obama noted that the synergies that develop from bringing all of those facets together can make the whole greater than the sum of the parts. So starting in 2010, the SBA led an administration-wide effort around clusters. And I'm pleased to say that so far we have invested across the federal government in over 50 clusters, and over 15 agencies have participated. We track these things, and we have very, very strong early results. The second place-based activity is accelerators. And accelerators are related. I call them first cousins to clusters, but they're not exactly the same because accelerators are focused on accelerating startups. And they're in some ways the evolution of incubators where small companies have a place to start. They have a support network, which includes counseling and access to capital. And new accelerators of all varieties are springing up all across the country. Over the last year, we decided to use our role at the SBA as the grand convener. So we brought together over 100 accelerators, first in regional convenings, and then we had a large group to the White House last fall to discuss best practices and the formation of a national network. So we're going to continue to work on this accelerator network with the Kauffan Foundation, who was actually one of the original forces in identifying and supporting these groups. Now, the second focus at the federal level I'm going to talk about might be kind of unexpected, but it's supply chains. And we are focused on building effective supply chains of small and medium-sized businesses and innovative businesses here in the U.S. There are an estimated 250 to 700,000 firms who participate in the supply chains of the U.S. government, particularly the Department of Defense, and commercial supply chains like GE and Boeing and the U.S. automotive companies. And we know that having an effective supply chain of small firms is critical to the competitiveness of large corporations. And what we've seen is that when they have a strong and nimble and particularly innovative supply chain, that can drive decisions by large companies to insource production back to the United States. So the SBA is leading an integrated, administration-wide effort to strengthen America's supply chains and make them more efficient and continue to make them more innovative and more incorporate more entrepreneurs. We're going to assemble companies and their suppliers from across the country. We're matching them with resources they might need, like working capital, advice and counseling on manufacturing, and access to export opportunities. The first meeting in this supplier initiative is going to be hosted by IBM later this month. Last point, growth capital. The third element of SBA's support for entrepreneurs really centers around the subject of this report from Kauffman today: where do they find capital? And we know that high-growth companies face big gaps in terms of access to growth capital and to early-stage investment. Tom mentioned a few of the things that the report focuses on, some new tools that we have supported, including crowdfunding, that was included in the Jobs Act, will help fill those gaps. But in addition, at the SBA, we have both our $100 billion loan portfolio, which is important capital, but we have one of the most important tools, our Small Business Investment Company program, SBIC. And through this program, we actually allocate $3 billion a year in authority to funds who then deploy the capital to high-growth entrepreneurs. Over the past 5 years, we've completely streamlined this program. When I came in, we were doing about $600 million a year through this program. It took 15 months to get a license. Now we're doing almost $3 billion a year, and it takes 5 months to get a license. And the program really operates today as, in some ways, a model public-private partnership with expert decision-making happening from the private sector experts, and they are deploying the capital to promising firms all across the country. We had our third record-breaking year in this program in fiscal 12, and we've used it to launch new platforms for early-stage investing and for increasing the deployment of this kind of capital to high-growth companies in economically disadvantaged regions of the country. Let me close with a quick story. I was recently in Ames, Iowa. Been there? It's nice, actually. Yeah. And I was visiting a company called Harris Vaccines. So what are they doing in Ames, Iowa? They are making a leading vaccine for shrimp, and they're exporting to Indonesia. So what is a company in Ames, Iowa doing? Making shrimp vaccine. Well, it turns out, of course, that a professor at Iowa State developed a breakthrough regarding the swine flu. And one of our small business innovation research grants actually took that technology and expanded it to shrimp. So now Dr. Hank Harris and his team are out there exporting and growing one of the most innovative businesses in a rural area of America and providing world-class solutions and American jobs in the process. That's a testament to inclusive entrepreneurship. What we need to do is to make sure that more companies like this have the wind at their back. At the SBA and all across the administration, our job is to provide access and opportunity so that these high-growth entrepreneurs can do what they do best, grow their company and create jobs. That's how we create an American economy that can grow and can compete all across the globe. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Administrator Mills.